What's something you said that was so horribly misunderstood, it still haunts you to this day? I was talking to my coworker about my recent trip I had at BJ's, the restaurant, and how much I enjoyed their wings. She thought I was talking about the wholesale store, so I had to explain that I went to the restaurant. The conversation eventually turned into what business people think of first when they hear BJ's, so I mistakenly turned and asked the nice old lady checking out, without any context, "What do you think of first when I say BJ's?" I could never live that one down. Art teacher at my school normally wears a t-shirt, apron, hair pulled up, headband, glasses and sometimes a mask. Saw her at a dressy event and I exclaimed, "You look so pretty I didn't even recognize you." I rolled my eyes and said, "Everyone knows women can't drive," in a sarcastic tone, and my boss at the time thought I was serious and, since I'm a woman, took it as a sign that I was a good Christian girl and wanted to be my boyfriend. I was joking with a coworker when someone poked their head in and I greeted them by name. "We work in big place," and she exclaimed, "Boy, you really do know everybody and their brother." So I joked back, "Yes I do. And BTW, how is your brother?" She answered, "Still dead. I forgot he had died last month." I was getting a massage at an upscale spa, where you have to sign a medical waiver, etc. Therapist was reviewing my info and she asked how I was feeling, any problems, etc. I responded, "I'm a little naughty this morning." Well, she heard, "I'm feeling naughty." She just gave me an uncomfortable look. It wasn't until part way into the massage that I realized the misinterpretation exclamation mark. I told a friend of the family that the baby looked like the husband but said I wouldn't panic yet. He'll probably grow out of it in a few years. I didn't mean it the way it sounded. I was in an indoor playground kind of place in Austin with my 2 young daughters, talking to a friend about skiing. I was telling her how my family had property near Taos, but I never went there to ski, because most of the slopes were black diamond, and beyond my skill level. My younger daughter escaped across the room, and as I chased her down, I called loudly to my friend, "I just don't enjoy going. It's something like 60% black." Cue record scratch. It's been almost 30 years, and I still wince at the memory. My 3-year-old son accidentally sprained my wrist, thought it was broken. I was in the ER answering questions and the triage nurse asked me if I feel safe in my home and I jokingly said not anymore. He looked at me seriously and said, "I'm going to have to report that." One time, me and my friend were play fighting. For context, she is Asian, and I am not, she said. "At least I don't have an ugly red car." So I said, "Well, at least I have eyes that can see right." Which she obviously interpreted as me making a comment about her having Asian eyes. We live in a town with almost no Asians, so she gets a lot of racism for being Asian. I was not referring to her eye shape though. Basically, earlier when we were hanging out, we were looking at some shorts at the store, and she called them red, but they were maroon, so we had been joking the rest of the day about how she couldn't tell the difference. Just joking about how she couldn't tell the colors apart, nothing about her eyes. And she didn't have any problems with it obviously, so when I said, "Well, at least I have eyes that can see right," what I meant was, at least I can see that my car is maroon not red. I didn't think anything of it when I said it of course, but she replied with, "Well, at least I grew up in a healthy family." And I laughed and went on my way. We were already parting ways joking with each other on the way out. I didn't take any offense from that jab, because I'm not sensitive to that fact of my life, so I still didn't realize anything was up. Obviously when she said that a bunch of other people in our friend group gasped, but I thought it was still in all fun, until I heard her say, after I was a few steps away, "Well, if she is going to say something racist to me, I'm going to say something mean back to her." To the other girls in our group. I instantly ran back in and was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa. Racist? What do you mean?" She then said how I made fun of her Asian eyes, saying she can't see right. I instantly cleared up what I meant by saying that, and apologized, saying I should have been more conscious about how those words could have been interpreted. She felt really bad too about saying that about my family. She was crying. I was almost crying. We patched it all up then and there. We are still good friends, but I still feel bad sometimes about not realizing how my comment sounded. I worked at a large chain pet store in college and we had training on how to spot shoplifters. If we saw any of the red flags, there were subtle responses we were trained to use to minimize theft without confrontation. This woman came in about once a week for several weeks showing almost every red flag. Huge winter coat in summer. Slow walking aisles and avoiding employees. Never actually buying things. One day I started doing things like greeting her loudly, fixing shelves in the aisle she was in, and just generally keeping an eye on her. She responded by almost literally running from the store in a panic. Turns out she lived in a supervised living community nearby with severe social anxiety and some developmental disabilities. Someone from the home came with her a few days after to help her feel comfortable in the store since she loved seeing the animals so much, and had assumed her experience was caused by paranoia and social anxiety, not employees actually following her around the store. I still feel like a shitty person, and this was over 20 years ago. I was at a party, talking to some old acquaintances about games we used to play as children. The Sims came up as a topic, and people were sharing fucked up things they used to do with The Sims, like removing the ladder from the pool or setting the kitchen on fire. I never used to do any of that, but I tried to make neighborhoods where you had at least one child in every family fathered by the mailman, or where you made step-siblings get together. This was way before I discovered porn, or even had any concept of sexuality, so it was more based on jokes I'd heard and stuff. Anyway, I told the people at the party about this and they all took it to mean I had some weird fetishes. I do have some fetishes, but these are not amongst them. Still feel embarrassed about it. Me at the drive-in. They got a new intercom thing and it was so clear. At the window, you sounded so good. I could understand you. She gave me the weirdest look. Driving away, I realized I hadn't mentioned that it was the intercom that sounded good. And me, a white woman, had just told a Hispanic woman at the drive-in that I was impressed that I could understand her. I was so mortified I wanted to go back around and be all, no. I meant the intercom. But thought I'd probably look utterly deranged, so just drove away feeling awful. College creative writing class. I wrote a poem about my boyfriend's trusty pocket knife that I meant in a completely straightforward way. Classmates read way more into it and found S&M symbolism, still mortified thinking about it. When I was in college at the end of my senior year, I was working a summer job as a server, with several older women whose entire career had been serving. I mentioned something about when I start my real job, and whoops. It seriously offended one of the ladies that had been there for years. At dinner when I was 7 years old or so, I was talking about how much I hated our church. I called it, Ministers, House of Horrors. Only I had a speech impediment and everyone thought I said House of Horrors. The resulting confusion and distress from my parents is how I found out what prostitutes are. I had just started dating my first husband near the end of the spring semester, and he stayed with some friends that I didn't know for a few weeks before going home, overseas, for the summer. When we saw each other again in the fall, we hadn't spoken all summer, and he said, "Why didn't you call me?" It was before cell phones and the number I'd had for him was his friend's house, and I responded, "I'm not really comfortable calling strangers." He took it as me calling him a stranger, and even now, after a 12-year relationship, 5 years married, a divorce, and 25 more years of friendship, he still claims I called him a stranger. I used to go to this one art supply store to buy stuff, and there was this one employee I used to talk to. I guess she must have seen me as a friend-ish. One day, I asked how much some stuff cost, and she said, "For you, they are free." For the love of me, I don't know why I didn't just say thanks and leave it at that. Instead I said, "Why me?" Her mood immediately changed. I could tell she was deeply pissed. She wrapped the stuff, put a price tag on them, and forcibly handed them to me. It wasn't even my intention to buy them, I merely asked out of curiosity. I thought she would get over it soon, but oh boy was I wrong. About 10 years later, I returned to that same store and she was still very angry at me. I wish I could take that one moment back. I don't even know why I asked why me, but what I do know is that it wasn't my intention to offend her at all.